Hey guys.
Woohoo!
And they appear. We got John Carlton, Diane Dehoney here to talk about, I can't believe it, it's the Spring 2025 Heritage Lecture Series.
Spring 2025.
I'm here for it though. I'm ready for spring already.
Okay.
What's going on, guys? Y'all good?
Yes, we're great. Thank you all for having us as usual. And first, I want to say congratulations to Diane Dehoney, who just got promoted to Adult Services Librarian.
Thank
you.
After
17
17 years as Community Services Librarian
Okay.
for the library.
Thank you
Well,
so very
congratulations.
much.
So, and
Appreciate that.
they allowed her to stay on with the lecture series.
Yes.
It's
Awesome.
partly her baby, so.
Well, sure.
Awesome. Well, maybe that means we see more of you now that
Yes.
you're, big.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. So we want to talk about first? We want to talk about we've got a December lecture. Y'all want to touch on that first?
Let's talk about that one first because it actually leads into the spring season.
Okay.
Originally, December 14th was going to be Dr. Drew Andrews with the Kentucky Geological Survey talking about the geomorphology of the Kentucky River.
He's been on before,
He's been on
right?
before.
Okay.
But he was unable to, he had some other things going on, was unable to do it. So we moved up our pop-up lecture, which is Dr. Daniel Gifford, who is a historian and board member of the Felsen Historical Society, to do his lecture on that Saturday, December 14th. And he's going to be talking about the founding of the Felsen Historical Society. This is the first part of two lectures. He released a book in, I think, September called Benefactors of Posterity, the founding era of the Felsen Historical Society, 1884 to 1899. And so he's going to be talking about his book, and he'll have those for sale. And then we can get into our spring lecture series, which...
Well, I would say just one last thing on the December. I mean, that would be a great opportunity for a holiday gift, maybe.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I always say a signed book is one of the best gifts that you can give.
100%.
So they're going to be really excited about this. Also, if you had looked at our schedule previously, John mentioned that this was rescheduled.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, Dr. Gifford was our pop-up. That was going to be on December 17th.
Okay.
So that's been moved up to December 14th. So our normal spot, our second Saturday spot for the month.
Perfect.
And so that book will be released, and he'll have those copies of those to sign. And then we kick off our spring lecture series with part 2 of the history of the Felsen with the incoming director and president and CEO of the Felsen Historical Society, Dr. Patrick Lewis, who most everybody in the historical scene in Kentucky knows.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, without getting too, I don't want to spoil the surprise for people, but I mean, can you give a little bit of a background on what the Felsen Historical Society is,
Sure.
The purposes it serves, and things like that?
So one of the reasons we wanted to have the Felsen part of this, 2025 is their 140th anniversary of, it's either 24 or 25 is their 140th anniversary, and they're releasing that book for that purpose. The Felsen Kentucky has 2 historical societies. We have a private one and a public one. The Kentucky Historical Society is our public one. They actually have a similar founding. They started off together, and then they at one point they kind of shut down, and then they branched off. One became private and the other one became public. That's when the Historical Society got set up at the Capitol and then moved over to the old Capitol, and now they have their own building. But the Felsen has been around since the 1880s, about the same time that the Kentucky Historical Society reemerged.
Okay.
And they both have Frankfurt connections, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have them part of this. So that's the background on the Felsen.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to, in case
No,
people
it's all right. Thank you. And then we kick off, I think right after that is, it's not on the regular season, but we do have a pop-up lecture, and I want to mention this one because it does lead into our next on the season. Dr. Vanessa Holden, Associate Professor of History and Director of African American and Africana Studies at University of Kentucky, and she's also the Director of Central Kentucky Slavery Initiative, will be doing a lecture on understanding slavery in Kentucky, and talking about the slave trade in Kentucky and how that evolved, how that started, and kind of the repercussions of that and emancipation. With the Civil War, Reconstruction, and then that leads into, so that's going to be January
28th.
January 28th. That's a Thursday at 6 p.m. And that leads into our next lecture on the series, which is, everybody knows Doug Boyd, who wrote Crawfish Bottom. That book was released in, I believe, 2011, and almost everybody in Frankfort has a copy of that book. So we're going to lead in from Reconstruction into the crawl. That neighborhood had been around really since like the early to mid 1800s, and by the time it was destroyed in the 1950s through urban renewal, there was something like 800 houses and 1,100 residents that were displaced from urban renewal. So he's going to reflect on his book and the history that he did the research on while he was at the Kentucky Historical Society. And that's going to be February 8th at 1 o'clock on Saturday. And then we have March 8th we have February 27th, another pop-up, which is, I won't talk about this too much, but Stuart Sanders is coming back to do his book, Anatomy of a Duel. He was previously scheduled this season, but had to reschedule. So we're going to have him back to talk about his book, which is Anatomy of a Duel, Secession, Civil War, and the Evolution of Kentucky Violence. So this is a culture part. It actually takes us kind of back to the Civil War, but it talks about Kentucky culture. And then we are lucky to have, everybody knows, Nikki Hughes, who helped found the Kentucky Military History Museum when he was with the Kentucky Historical Society. So he's going to come back on March 8th at 1 o'clock and talk about the Commonwealth's Castle, the Old State Arsenal.
I love that picture. Is he going to be dressed like that, do you think? Likely?
You never know
never
with
know.
Nikki. You never know. But that is a perfect picture of Nikki Hughes right there. And of course, Nikki was also a co-founder of the Capital City Museum. And I believe then that takes us to April 12th, which is, we just got a great lineup. I mean, Dr. David Pollock, who is the director of the Kentucky Archaeological Survey, widely considered one of the best archaeologists in the region, much less the state. He's expert on Native American archaeology, and he, as we all remember, I believe, what was it, in 1990, or was it 2002 when the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet was built?
Oh, yeah.
And when they were uncovering that area, they discovered a cemetery full of about 200 and some odd people, 250, 60 people, of mixed backgrounds, mixed class backgrounds, mixed ethnic and race backgrounds. And so it was a really unique find. There were very few references to it, which is why it was forgotten. And then unfortunately, we didn't have the reverence practices that we have today for cemeteries, and they built over it. The former city jail, the White Rock Hotel, as they called it, was built on top of it in the 1880s. And so they took those remains and sent them off to University of Kentucky, which is where the Archaeological Survey was at the time, and created a publication called Frankfort's Forgotten Cemetery. And those remains, once studied, were reinterred at Fort Hill. So this cemetery was active somewhere between like 1810 and 1855, somewhere around there. So, and it was before Frankfurt had its own cemetery, which Frankfurt Cemetery was founded in around 1846. So, anyway, then we moved to May 10th, and this is a big deal. The 200th anniversary of the Marquis de Lafayette's visit to Frankfurt. In 1824 and 1825, he embarked on a return tour. He had visited the United States after it was founded several times, but this was his last tour of the United States to see what had transpired after all his and his fellows' efforts. And it just amazes me that he was 19 years old. You know, General Wilkinson, James Wilkinson, our founder, was like 26 years old.
Yeah.
You know, these guys were young and doing amazing things. But anyway, he's in his like 60s and comes back to Frankfurt, or comes back to the United States and does this tour. Originally, he thought he was going to do the original 13 states, but ends up touring all 26 at the time. And it took him a year and a half to do it.
That's why we got that marker, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So the speakers we have for that day, the first one is Julian Ishay with the Lafayette Trail. And the Lafayette Trail was founded, he is actually a French Marquis as well, from France, degrees in history. And he founded the Lafayette Trail to commemorate the tour that Lafayette did for his farewell tour. And in the last 2 or 3 years, he's been visiting all of the places and installing signs, plaques at these places that Lafayette visited. And 2 years ago, during Frankfurt Heritage Week, as a matter of fact, they erected the plaque at Liberty Hall. While he was in Frankfurt, he came down Lafayette Hill, why Lafayette Hill is named after him, Lafayette Road.
Yep.
Entered Frankfurt with a huge parade, crossed the not Singing Bridge, but the bridge before that, the covered wooden bridge. There was even a covered wooden bridge before that one. That's the one he entered on.
Okay.
At St. Clair, and he was treated to a dinner and a ball. And during the ball, he left and went to Liberty Hall to visit Margaretta Brown, and that takes us to our next speakers, which are Jessica Dawkins, Executive Director of Liberty Hall, and John Walker, Curator of Collections at Liberty Hall, who will be talking about his visit to Frankfurt and his visit to Liberty Hall to meet with Margaretta, and some new information they have uncovered as to the connections from Lafayette to Margaretta. Originally, they thought that Lafayette was connected to John Brown. Turns out he was connected to Margaretta.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So they will be uncovering, laying all that history that they've just uncovered there. And then to finish off the season, we have back again for number 2, Richard Taylor.
Yep.
And he has gladly taken on this great subject, which also happened in 1825. So the Lafayette visit happened in May of 1825, and in November of 1825, the Sharp Beecham tragedy occurred, which was the murder of Colonel Solomon Sharp, who lived next the street that used to exist between the Federal Building and the Old Capitol. I can't remember what that was called now, but anyway, he lived there. There was a rumor going around that Solomon Sharp, had violated a woman who then becomes Jeroboam Beecham's wife and lover. And Jeroboam Beecham, a lawyer from out of town, comes to seek vengeance, comes into Frankfurt one night, murders Solomon Sharp at his door,
Eek.
and escapes. And there were lots of accusations going on. Who did this? Blah, 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 blah. Lots of people brought in. And he ended up actually even visiting the Mansion House, trying to get a room there, which the Mansion House was at where the McClure Building is now. It was a 100-room hotel. But anyway, he there's a big love story that takes place. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah, right.
He and his wife end up both committing suicide.
Oh my goodness.
Over this. And so anyway, it became a play by Edgar Allan Poe that was based off this story.
Wow.
Yes. It was an unfinished play.
Yeah.
But anyway, Richard Taylor's going to talk about that whole story.
Oh, wow.
And it's just going to be great.
Yeah.
But that is our spring 2025 season.
And then it goes into the summer.
And it goes into the summer.
And please note that we mentioned a couple of the pop-ups that will be taking place that we already have scheduled for early in the year, but we'll probably be filling some more pop-ups in for some of those later spring months.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for those. All of these lectures are going to be taking place at the Paul Sawyer Public Library, which is located at 319 Wapping Street, right downtown, in our River Room. And we'd love to have anyone and everyone come and join us. We do ask that you register just so we can have an idea of how many to expect. You can do that on the library's website at www.pspl.org. And registration opens for each lecture 1 month ahead.
Okay.
But you
absolutely.
but you'll be able to go on and take a look at the full schedule. The full schedule should be up on the website later today, and you can start registering for the January dates.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can we see that screen again? There you go. There's a QR code there if anybody wants to go on and register
Yes.
right now.
Absolutely.
You can
For that
scan that
December.
and go register.
And these are all free. That's,
yes, they're all free. And thanks to you all, taped for posterity.
Yeah.
Thank you
so
so
if you
much.
missed a date, they are there.
Yeah.
So, thank you all for that. They will be part of the library that you
Yeah.
all, the repository of Frankfurt history.
How
that
we
you
keep
all have.
history going. Right?
Love
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, obviously, we will talk about these events as they come closer and whatnot. But what would be a way for folks to kind of stay abreast with maybe do announcements or things like that on Facebook or?
Yes, you can always follow the library, the
Okay.
Paul Sawyer Public Library on Facebook.
If you're not doing that already,
Yeah, you
just
should
get on
definitely
that.
should.
Hello.
That's a good way to keep up. We have so many things going on all the time for all ages. So Facebook is a great way to keep up with that. Also, you can check out our calendar on our website. And we do have a dedicated page on our website for the Frankfurt Heritage Lecture Series. So you can go back on there and you can see the upcoming lectures, but also we keep an archive of our past presenters so you can see who you've
Awesome.
been.
With links to your YouTube videos.
Yes.
Perfect.
There you go.
Nice.
So, and they, please register because, some of the lectures, we can have 35 attendees, and then we've had as big as 180 attendees.
Yes.
So it helps Diane figure out how many chairs she needs to
Yeah.
set up.
That's
Right,
all we
it's
need to
important.
know. It's
Yep.
still free.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's still free.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna track them down if
No.
they get sick and can't make it or something.
No, but unfortunately, we've had standing room only
Yeah.
situations
Right, you
because
don't
of
want
that.
that.
So, but we're not complaining.
The more
But,
the merrier.
The
Right.
more the merrier. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, anything else you guys want to be sure to talk about before we roll on?
No, only just that, as Diane said, we've got more pop-ups coming up. We've got one really, really big one we're getting ready to be very excited to announce very soon. So,
Ooh, a little teaser.
Yep.
We need to know their favorite cookies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our question. Everybody's got an answer for this one. I don't want to hear it. You guys y'all have favorite cookies you want to tell people?
Okay. I'm going to go snickerdoodle.
Oh,
Ooh,
okay.
Soft, not crunchy.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I like it.
Oh goodness. Chocolate chip is probably my favorite, but it's almost considered a classic.
It's just a standard
It's a
classic.
standard.
But it's like me though. Like I like vanilla ice cream. I like glazed
timeless.
donuts and chocolate
Yeah.
chip cookies.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah, I just like a plain
standards.
glazed donut.
So I don't know if I could choose between like oatmeal or peanut butter.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Oatmeal raisin. Or just
I can
oatmeal.
handle the raisins every once in a while.
Oatmeal chocolate
Yep.
chip.
Yep.
Those are good.
They are
I
good.
like
People
that.
get really upset about raisins, though, if they
Yeah.
don't know that it's raisins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the coconut chocolate ones from the Girl Scouts. Those
Oh,
are
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
With
The
the
Samoas.
stripes.
The Samoas.
Yep.
Right.
So,
Good answers, guys.
A caramel delight, I think is what they're called
yep,
now.
that's right.
All right. Well, thanks so much for all y'all do for the community. It's great that we keep these stories going, and we're happy to come out and record them for history's sake.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you all
for
so
having
much.
us.
Yes,
Absolutely.
always.
Don't be
Come
strangers.
again.
Yes.
We will.
We will.
Thank you.
I know you will. We look forward to it.